Nick Watwell, I'm joined now by the Shadow Secretary for Scotland, Ian Murray. Ian, thank you very much for joining us tonight. First, we'll come to fiscal matters in a moment. Does Labour, though, want to see the Bank of England move quickly to curb inflation? I mean, there's been criticism already that it's been too slow by not doing something today.
Well, we've got this real problem now, haven't we? Because we've got, on the one hand, the government putting in policies that are making it inflationary, and on the other hand, the Bank of England to set this 2% inflationary target. So it looks as though all the predictions are that the interest rates might peak at 6%, when in actual fact that we're talking about 4% just before the mini-budget last Friday. So it looks as if the Bank of England will have to accelerate that, and they're accelerating that because of the inflationary pressures that's been put on by the government themselves.
But do you want them to move now? Do you want them to move this week? Do you think it's very important for confidence in the country, confidence in the economy and the confidence of ordinary people they move now?
Well, they're going to have to do something because the markets have already had their verdict on this Chancellor's budget, and it's not a particularly happy one. And this will affect everyone in the country. I know we're talking about markets and we're talking about the pound, which is quite an abstract thing for most people sitting around their dining tables, but it affects everyone, particularly if the response to that has to be that mortgage rates will have to go up, because that will affect many millions of people.
Well, but the point is that, you know, if you actually put interest rates up, you've got a massive problem anyway.
Well, we're now in this vicious circle of the government's own creation. We've got stagnation, we've got low growth, we've got high taxes, we've got high inflation, we've got interest rates on the way up. This is a recipe for disaster, and the government knew this, and they've now gone down this route of complete and utter economic suicide in terms of what they put through last Friday.
But the whole point is that growth, which is what they're absolutely focused on, is really what matters, and presumably Labour is absolutely focused on it too. Now let's look at fiscal matters. You would reverse the cut in the 45p rate in the pound, but you would keep the basic rate cut, you would reverse NI, you would fund spending by borrowing, just like the government. You'd also revive plans to raise corporation tax and extend a windfall tax by $8 billion. How are you going to fund all this?
Well, look, some of the spending, or most of the spending, is about capital.
Yep.
It's about investing in green technologies, it's about creating the jobs of the future. All governments borrow right across the world for capital spending. What this current government are doing is they're borrowing for day-to-day revenues. They're borrowing from the public.
But whether you're borrowing for day-to-day revenues or borrowing for that, you're borrowing at rates that are on the increase.
On the increase, and they're borrowing on the basis of revenue to give tax cuts to the richest, paid for by those at the bottom, because we're going to be mortgaging this now for years and years to come.
Even when you look at the sums, you know, even if you look at extending the windfall tax to deal with energy, even if you look at reversing the 45p tax, you're not going to make all your commitments, your massive commitments that were made today. District nurses, doctors, paramedics.
Well, all of those policies are fully funded.
But
that policy is fully funded by the increase in the top rate again to 45.
No, but they can't be funded. But they can't be funded. Hang on, but they can't be funded by the top rate going back to 45%, because there isn't enough money from the rich to do that.
Well, Rachel Reeves has been very clear. In fact, she set it out at conference this time last year of our fiscal rules. And those fiscal rules allow for us to be able to take those changes in the income tax rates and fund other things. For example, the £28 billion Green Fund is for capital expenditure, making sure we can get high-quality jobs in this greener, fairer economy that we've been talking about all of this week.
But where are you going to get that fund from? That takes a while to build up. What I'm saying to you is one of your big priorities is the health service. With what you're doing, and you know, the 45 pence is not going to help you with that. You've already agreed to the tax cut from 20 to 19. Where are you going to find extra money from except by borrowing, which is getting dearer?
Yes, but it's also about growing the economy. Don't forget, this is we're going for growth too, but we're doing it in a fair way. We've got the Chancellor who's come to the House of Commons as his first act on Friday and delivered a budget that would fail an economics exam at A-level because of what he's tried to do. He's borrowing money from all of us to give tax cuts to the rich on the basis of the backs of the poor. He's getting money to people who don't need it on the backs of people who can't afford to pay it.
Would Labour rule out backing any more tax cuts?
Well, we have to look at this in the round. We get all these questions all the time about individual pieces of income tax policy. We've set out very clearly that we would put the 45p in. We've set out clearly that we would take the 1 pence reduction in the basic rate, because that gives money to the poorest workers in the country who are so desperate for at the moment in terms of this cost of living crisis. We'll set out a whole package. We don't know what the interest rates and the pound will look like tomorrow, let alone at the next election. So we'll go into that election with a package of what the economy looks like at the time. But what we won't do is give money to the richest on the backs of the poorest, and that's what this government have been doing for the last few weeks.
Ian Murray, thank you very much indeed.